Hi friends, we're on the hour. It's 1 o'clock on a Monday morning, well, Monday afternoon now, on 22nd of June 2020. We've just come out of a very exciting international networking meeting with colleagues for people from Ghana, UK, Australia, South Africa, and it was amazing to see how fast people have caught up to the technology. And as a matter of fact, I think we are now networking better and faster with each other than we've ever done before. So if you missed out on some of these sessions, don't despair. They're all recorded and they'll be made available. We'll still have to discuss exactly how that will be done, but make sure that if you're new, put your details, contact details there in the chat room so that we can connect with you. And we're on to a new session now for the next hour with someone who already impressed all of us yesterday when he did his session on Forex trading and developing algorithms for what he was doing. But in real life, Grant has got an interesting story. He shared it one morning with us in the Wisdom's chat room. But Grant is now a lecturer at the University of Stellenbosch, amongst all his other hats that he's wearing. He has a passion for anything to do with figures and algorithms and stuff like that. And his real specialty is in the field of automation. And he's quite sought after when it comes to develop some training material and courses around this new topic. So without any further ado, Grant, I want to hand over to you to tell us how automation and fourth industrial revolution and all these fancy words that we hear is going to affect us and our jobs, and how do we prepare for it going forward. Over to you.
Thanks, Jasper. Thanks everybody who's made this virtual fair available. Jasper, thank you for the introduction. You make me sound intelligent. I love that. I just have to believe it myself now. Okay, so I'm going to do a talk which I've done with Stellenbosch University. For some reason they call me because apparently I know about automation. And the first bit of it's going to be about what automation is and what's happening in the future. And this is a little bit of research that I've done and some of my views, and you might have other views, and I welcome the discussion. And then to tell you a little bit, a sample of some of the jobs that I do in this field, or the projects that I've done. So I've put it together as a video. There is a spelling mistake I saw now, and I'm hoping that I haven't got any weird cuts in here, but we'll see how this works. I've left the chat session open. Yesterday it worked quite well that I was able to type on the chat session while the video is running. Although I am using a new piece of software, and I've noticed as soon as I full screen it, I lose my second video as well for some reason, my second screen. So I might not chat, but I will certainly try. So let me put the video on, and then that's about a 30-minute video. Then we can you can argue with me after that. Okay, so I'm going to just optimize screens here quickly, optimize sound and video, share that screen, make it full screen, and this should work. Then take my mic off.
Through this talk, I'd like to take you through two parts of it. The first part is about what is automation, how's it going to change the world, how's it going to change your job, and how do you prepare for that. And that's more of a discussion side of things. So it'd be nice to get some input from you guys and what you think as well. So I've done as a bit of a study on that. It's just in preparation for this talk and for other talks, similar talks I do for the University of Stellenbosch. And then I'll go into the kind of automation that I get involved in, which is more bespoke types of automation. But let's talk about what is automation and where is it around the world. It's been here for forever. I believe from the Industrial Revolution, things were already starting to be automated at that point in time. Printing of books was automated in that the machine would do it where people used to do it. Automation has just increased tremendously over time, and especially lately due to computers, due to AI, and we'll talk a bit about that in a bit. But we're seeing self-driving cars coming out, which is AI, automation. We've got warehouse robots, so warehouses like Amazon employ robots to move their goods around inside their store. You've got drone deliveries happening. I hear that earlier this year, our aviation authority actually okayed an AI algorithm for drones so that they don't go flying into airplanes. It'll take a while to get in. It's very expensive still. So you're unlikely to get your slap chips from the corner by AI because it'll cost you $1,000 just to get the delivery. But anyway. Then you got robotics. I've seen robotics in apple packing stores in Elgin. Brilliant machines that have AI on the back, and they work out, when's the next apple going to come down the line, what type of apple is it, that they can photographs of each apple, and they can color code them and sort them, and by size they can take out the ones that have got blemishes, and then the packing machine will actually will work out when I need a new box, or when I need a new pallet, or when I wrap a pallet in plastic, and oh, there's some more apples coming, let's put them in a box. So it's actually learning as it goes how to do that. Other places you'll see it is like the hiring process. There's a lot of places that look through, you can imagine how many CVs some people or some companies get, and you'll find that there's AI now starting to look at those CVs. There have been problems lately in that the AI starts to learn the wrong thing, and you found that in the States somewhere there was a company that would not hire people from a certain area because it had learned that people from that area do not have qualifications, and so it just made the assumption that anybody from that area could not be hired. And so, yeah, so AI it's not perfect, it has to be taught. But yeah, that's AI, and I'll talk a little bit about what the difference is between AI and automation. So automation, think of it as those robots that build cars. You see the big armed robots and the cars coming down the production line that they build. That's automation. Somebody was there before putting a piece of metal on and screwing it in, or at least welding it in. And now you've got machines that will come in and build the whole thing for you. If you had to take it into AI, you could think of it as if we had to interconnect those via some network, that they could start talking to each other, and we gave it the ability to start recording its own data, like how fast certain parts of its mechanics are spinning, how in line they are, how the machine next to me is doing, how fast things are coming down the line from him. That sort of thing, you could feed all that information into a system which would then start to teach itself what are the precursors to a breakdown on any of the machines, and it could actually start to get fairly intelligent, things that humans might not pick up, little changes in little components, and the computer could actually, or the algorithm at the back of the machines could actually flag the support staff and say, you know what, I'm about to break down, and I think you need to adjust my hujima flip a little bit to the left, or whatever it is, and that could be AI. So AI is a learning thing, but it learns by people teaching it. So the most common one there is, we start off when we start learning about it, is how to do character recognition, and we do digits 0 to 9, and there's still, we've done this for how many years, and we're still trying to find the best algorithm to teach computers to take handwritten numbers and work out what is the correct number. And we'll do face recognition and speech recognition, your AI in terms of your biometrics and finger scans, and all that's sitting inside AI deep learning, or inside something called neural networks. So many people are worried about, how do I fit into the future? Is my job in jeopardy? And some of them are. So let's talk about some of the jobs that people are saying, or research is saying, that are probably going to be replaced by AI or automation in the future. So jobs that are repetitive, that are that you could actually write down the rules of what you do every day, it's the same all the time, could probably be replaced. So things like bank tellers, we've seen bank tellers, you often don't even see bank tellers in banks anymore. Those sort of jobs will get replaced. Reps will get replaced. Financial analysts, that's kind of one of the things that I like to do. It's being automated. In fact, I automate my own financial analysis now. Construction workers, weird, you might not think so. It's a very manual job, but there are bricklaying machines, there are bulldozing machines that can be automated to dig a perfect hole for you. Laying cement, these things are all being automated. I've seen roadways, bricked roadways being laid in that perfect pattern by a machine. It just runs down the road and it just lays the bricks. Inventory management, obviously, I've already said about the robotics inside warehouses. Farming can become automated. It's not, you're still going to need your botanists to do the research on the plants themselves and certain parts of the management, but the large scale stuff can be done by robots. Manufacturing workers, well, we can automate that. The guys that mind the machines, we'll need a couple more high qualified guys, but the guys that are doing the basic manufacturing stuff, it's a repetitive job. Manufacturing is a repetitive job unless you're doing one-off products. It's really can be automated. Journalists, apparently journalists are also being, we've got robots that are able to write journal articles at the moment, which is interesting. In fact, we have AI that's able to find market sentiment by reading social media, and they can work out what the market sentiment is on a day, or they can work out through social media how popular certain people are in politics. Movie actors, that's a new one. I just happened to read it the other day. It's becoming more and more, you'll see movies coming out where at first look you're not quite sure if it's a person or an animation, and you kind of work out it's an animation, but they're actually getting to the point where if you think about it, it's a whole lot cheaper than having an actual actor to do an entire movie without actors, and you can do the whole lot through AI. Bookkeepers, obviously, the financial industry in general are going to be taking a knock. Bookkeeping is very repetitive. You're doing much the same stuff. The way you put stuff into the books, the way you report from the books, there's rules. In fact, when you study bookkeeping, there's rules on how to do it. Unless you get creative accounting, which you probably shouldn't. Yeah, so bookkeeping is probably one of the guys up there. Telemarketers, I get annoyed when a computer phones me and tries to sell me something, but then I get annoyed when anybody phones me and tries to sell me something. But you don't need the telemarketers, because I'm going to put the phone down on either of them. Receptionists, not required. Couriers, not required. As I said, we've got the Aviation Authority, which has okayed AI for drones, and we're talking courier drones, yeah. Proofreaders, you see on the web, you'll see Grammarly will be able to fix up your grammar for you. So these sort of AI sort of things that are coming in, those are the kind of jobs that might take a strain or might take a knock, or probably will take a knock within the next 10 years, I'm guessing. So let's talk about the jobs that will actually survive AI. Things where you'll notice that many of the names that they give out are managers. HR managers you'll still need, because there's people interaction. There's EQ needed there. There's actual social interaction. Sales managers, marketing managers, PR managers, chief executives, people who make the decisions at the end of the day. Remember, computers are not going to easily take over and start thinking for themselves. They don't really think. They get told how to think by humans, and there's a limitation. There's quite a, although it's really advanced, there's still quite a vast limitation to what they can do. So they're not going to be taking over the world anytime soon. Things like event planners, again, a really people person. People that put on fairs like this, you're going to need people to do the fairs. I mean, you can use technology to run the fair, but you're going to still need people to put the fair together. And actual fairs, and concerts and things like that, you're going to have people doing that sort of thing. We can't AI it just yet. Software developers, obviously, we're going to need them. Graphic designers will probably still be needed. And then your simple things like plumbers and electricians, it's going to take some time before AI catches up and starts to take over those kinds of jobs. The World Economic Forum says, put out a report in 2018 saying there will be more jobs created through automation than taken away. The thing that you got to know is that your jobs are not necessarily going to stay the same. So you need to be able to change with the times if you want to become relevant in tomorrow's world. What skills do you need then for the future? So research shows that we need things like emotional intelligence and social intelligence. Your human interaction is not going to go away in the future, and robots are not going to take that from you. So if you can get more into that sort of space. Cognitive flexibility, so your ability to work with lots of data. If you just look at what the kids are learning at school, the kind of data that's coming in at them is way more than the data was thrown at us, and we still expect them to learn all of that through their careers or their school career, and they're getting that right. And I think it's going to be getting worse in the future. But you need to be able to not get so silo or dogmatic or tunnel vision on your job. You need to start thinking, start to see more of what's happening around you, and start to, no, that's cuck. Let me start again.
So sorry about that. I'm going to move ahead a bit and get to the next section. Obviously, I didn't cut that section out. Can people hear me, just by the way?
Yes, we can hear you.
Wish you didn't.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm going to move across to the next section over here. You see where it is.
Man, we'll give you more work, more important work. So not.
I read this a section here. I really want to get through to you.
The last one that I wanted to put in there. Help with the database that he was writing. We'll just give you, that person, firstly the person with the flag, they need one of those.
Okay. So very importantly, I want people to know that you really want to get involved. Let me just take the share off. I think I'll take this from you, just in case. So you really, really want to get involved in the changes in your company. So if you're going to be, if your company is going through automation change, somebody's brought in some people that are going to automate the processes, and I think the first thing that happens is people get worried that they're going to be put out of work. My feeling is that you want to get involved. Don't be the person that sits there and has the coffee with other people and is negative about these changes that are coming. They're going to need people who are going to be involved in changing the current processes into automated processes. So be somebody on that project team, because you create a job for yourself in doing so. That's seriously a belief from my side. I think we far too easily think that automation is a bad thing. We think it's going to take our job away. If we think that and we don't make any changes, I believe that we are going to end up working ourselves out of a job over time. So let me just go through again some of the a bit more about the skills. So digital literacy and computational thinking is another one. Our youngsters are coming out with it automatically. They're born with cell phones. They're born with the ability to use all the media that's around at the moment. Judgment and decision making is another one. So it is as much as AI and data analysis can go through and find all the can go through a huge amount of data and find the patterns inside the data, they won't necessarily make good business decisions at the end of the day. So we still need the people at the top to take that data, that's the output of that data, and then create good decisions or business decisions and set vision and set direction for a company. And then a creative and innovative mindset. The kids that I see, and we're talking about high school kids at the moment, are different. And I'm noticing, and maybe it's just my subset of kids that I'm involved in, but I'm noticing more innovative, more creative thinking coming out of them. They design things, they make things, they find problems, and they solve them. I think the adults are a little bit behind on that. Sorry, someone say something? No. So when it comes to increasing those skills, if those are the skills you need, one of the questions I got from the Stellenbosch University talk that I did was then, so what do we do? If we don't have those skills, what do we do? And it is a difficult one. The first thing is a philosophy of mine. You've got to want to upgrade those skills, because I think too often we my age and older, we kind of think that we've been around the block so much that we're really good and we know everything. And I don't believe that's true. I believe we've got a lot of experience, but I think there is a change coming and you want to be sort of part of that change. So just choose to want to change. I've got a friend, a guy I met at a men's breakfast, and we got to talking, and he was the right-hand man of Bishop Tutu, and he asked me to do a job there. But through the whole thing, I started chatting to the guy, and he asked me to to take over a database that he had started building in Microsoft Access. So that might sound difficult to some of you people, writing a database access database. When I met him, he was over 60. Okay, they say he was 70. He was 70 something. So when computers came out, he must have been over 60. And a man at that age decided he was going to pick up learning about databases, and impressed me. This December, I helped him again with a database for his church, and the man is now 96. He's still writing databases for the church. Okay, so there's no reason why you can't learn something new. There really is not. Okay. The other thing is that everything that you do, so my one line is, don't assume that what you currently do cannot be automated. Don't put yourself in that risky position. Okay. And I know you go, oh, you can never do my job. Just at some point, someone's going to do your job better. Okay. So if you're not reinventing yourself all the time, you put yourself at risk. Okay. So some jobs are more difficult than others, but I think at some point computers will catch up with most people. So when you do any process of anything at work, especially things that are repetitive at work, then know that there's probably a better way. There's probably a quicker way, a faster, more accurate way, a more automated way. And if you can, try and build that way. And I think when people make the mistake is they say, well, I've got an 8-hour job, and if I can automate that it's only a 1-hour job, then I'm going to be fired because I'm now only working 1 hour a day. In fact, that's probably not the case. You're probably going to be more sought after in other parts of the business because the companies want to automate, and you can become that person that actually can actually help and be part of the project team and put these things together. So there was a couple of things that I saw on the write-ups about how do you get your skills up, and people think that this is let's go and do a course in cognitive skills. I suppose so. I've found it very difficult to teach logic, to teach that sort of creativity. I find it difficult. The things that the guys say do work, and this is maybe some of these are weird. Exercise. Exercise, a very simple one. We know it already relieves stress. Stress takes away innovation, takes away creativity, thoughts. So I go walking. I go walking for 5 kilometers at a time, and I walk really fast. And I've got a really hilly sort of place here, so it's quite cool. I can put an entire project plan together while I'm walking. I can just zone in, and while I'm dying from lack of breath, I'm able to actually think very clearly. But so it takes away, it helps you focus. Exercise. They say watch TV and read. I don't read a lot, but when I do read, I read manuals. My wife laughs at me. I cannot read a novel. I read manuals or anything new to learn. If you're going to watch the TV, then watch TV things that you can learn. I'm not saying you must go watch soap operas. Now this is one I know some people don't like. Solve puzzles, play games, play board games, play cards. Those sorts of things actually are good for the brain. I play computer games, but the way I play computer games is I'm always trying to reverse engineer how the guy wrote it in the first place. It's just the way I play them. But I do believe that they give me an edge of a way of thinking, an analytical way of thinking. The point is, become a student, go learn something new. They say get a new hobby, anything that gets the brain to learn new things. You don't want to stagnate. You want to keep learning. The speed at which kids are learning, the youngsters are learning, is ridiculous, and the information they've got available to them is ridiculous. So you want to keep learning. Attend workshops, reduce stress, address depression. I've been there. If you've been in depression, you'll know that there is just nothing useful happening while depression is happening. So you want to do that as well. Just a quick talk about Gen Zs. So Gen Zs is the next generation coming in. They're sort of getting into the market now. These are the new workforce. And a couple of things about them which makes them different to the millennials is, and this is just research that's out there, they are less prone to this instant gratification problem that the millennials are known for walking into their first job and saying, I want to be the CEO, and I can't understand why I'm not the CEO. Whereas Gen Zs are more worried about why they're working. It's not so, they're still competitive, but they want to know that there's a purpose to what they're doing, a good purpose to what they're doing. They are tech connected ridiculously, and if their workplace is not built that there's tech availability for them, you're not going to be able to keep those people. Also know, and this has been for probably 15 years now, nobody gets a job and works for you for 20 years anymore. They're not supposed to. People come in, you want them to have been a couple of places already, because that's one, experience, but two, also really big networks, so that they can connect to other people and bring it into your business as well. So don't expect them to sell you their soul for the next 20 years. That's not what you want from them. They're going to be with you for 5 years. They're going to learn what they can, and they're going to move on. Then let me just have a look if there's anything else I wanted to put in there. Less validation. They expect less validation. They can research. So when I'm teaching youngsters, and this was a mind thing. You've got to realize. I mean, that argument you used to hear around the bra that we don't know how youngsters are communicating because they're like this all the time and communication is breaking down. I don't hear that anymore around bras. I actually see the adults doing this now. So that whole thing just seems to have gone. They do communicate differently. I don't know if it's socially good. I don't know, but it seems to work. When I'm in class and I say something to youngsters, what happens is straight away did he tell a lie? So you're not the bearer of information anymore. What we do now is something called a flipped classroom. So firstly, we've got a blended classroom, which is I've got a headphones on and I've got 25% of my students in the class and the 75% are on the screens. They're in airports around, I mean, those are the oldest students, but then I teach like that. But the flipped classroom is where we teach we get them to learn by themselves, and all we're doing is guiding them through the learning process, but we're not the imparters of knowledge. That's not what we're trying to do. But just know that the youngsters are really good at researching something, probably better than we are. So that's just a feel for automation, where it's going, who's going to be the next guys in your companies. Maybe something about your kids. There's questions as to how well our schools are equipped to produce children that are able to fit into this world in the future. And I have a very small subset of that. I'm not a specialist on that. My subset, I think that the school that my son goes to does a fair job of that. But I do know that there's seriously inequality in the education in the country. So there's a lot of people that are not getting what they need to be able to fit into this world. And then just because I know that, yes, somebody wants to talk. No? Oh, okay. And then because I know that I'm supposed to talk about the work I do as well for some reason. So just a couple of examples of what I do when it comes to, I do automation, I do optimizations. Optimizations is building models. Just by the way, I use Excel mostly because most people have got Excel, most people can read Excel. And when I walk away from a client, I can hand over all knowledge to them so they can actually handle the stuff themselves. They don't become dependent on me. So optimization is when you give me data, and the most common one would be sort of prediction tools of sales or demand, that sort of thing. So I'll build a lot of those sort of tools. Maybe a couple of examples. We did an optimization tool for wind farms. We built an insurance product to insure wind farm farmers against wind loss. Sounds weird, but it was actually viable at the end of the day. I've done things in mining in terms of how fast can you drill a hole into the ground and then put dynamite, well, drill a hole, put dynamite in, blow the hole, put the machine in, take the rocks out, put the people in, take the small rocks out. And while you're doing that, cement the walls while you're putting in air vents, water, electricity. And you've got to make that stuff dry before you blow the next hole. So there's a certain speed at which you can do. There's an optimal speed now. And if you give me the data, well, they gave me the data, I'm able to build models that can optimize that for them. What else? Currently working on process automation for a printing work. So a very common thing I see is companies that are sort of medium to large companies, which have grown up organically, and they have processes being built on the fly as you need them. And then you find after a while, you've got a really big company and you've got all these disparate processes which don't speak to each other. And they've called me in, and I've now taken all their processes and I use what they've already got. So they take the accounting package that they've got. I had never seen that one before. We pull data out from there, we analyze it, we can create production schedules on the fly, we can change production schedules as we need, we can do quoting, we can work out which clients are the best clients, but all the processes in between, we're taking out days per week of time of people having to actually go and punch numbers in and also to repeat those numbers. Yeah, there's a whole lot of others. I mean, yesterday you would have seen our automated coding online. And currently I'm working on, for the next 2 weeks, I'm going to be building a teaching game. I think games are a brilliant way of teaching new concepts. So we've got a class every year with youngsters who are just out of school, maybe 1 or 2 years out of school, and they do a gap year through the varsity called Young Minds, and we teach them business for an entire year. And now it's all obviously gone online. So now we're trying to make the game online too. So we're actually taking we're going to use Excel, and we're going to use a server-based thing where you click a button and the information goes between. But basically, they're going to be running their own business in groups and competing with the other guys for market share, for supplier prices, getting their prices right in the market, and then in between force a couple of issues that might happen, like a COVID or something like that. So we're building that game now as well. I would love to build some more of those games. We'll see how that goes. A couple other things, but I think we are sitting at 132 at the moment. So I think maybe let's just open. I don't know if anybody wants to ask any questions.
All right, thanks, Grant. Gavin had a question there. Do you use a LMS, I think, learning management system, and which one?
Learning management system. So in terms of the varsity, Gavin, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. No, it's just with you saying that when you chat to a lot of your pupils, 75% of them online, etc., they're obviously connecting via some system.
Okay, yeah.
It's great for live, but if you, when live is done, I presume you record yourself. Do you broadcast anywhere? Do you put yourself on YouTube? Do you have a learning management system? Is there anything you utilize?
No, so those classes are specifically through University of Stellenbosch. So their classrooms are seriously high-tech geared with all the cameras and whatnot. They use Adobe Connect, I think they call it, which is their platform for allowing connections like a Zoom, I suppose. But there's a whole lot more functionality in it. Sometimes they record, but if they do, then the varsity records it and they put it onto a Moodle system, which is the most common system I've seen when it comes to management.
That was the answer to the question. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Okay.
Yeah, that's also the system I know Chris Black is using, DVSP training. I think, Grant, you've touched on almost a scary topic, with your opener to say, listen, AI is basically just algorithms, but the algorithms is dependent on how fast can the processes process the information and make decisions. And I've read in some other technical journal that they're now busy doing some of these transistors or things, but they're now like a quantum leap of what we are familiar with right now. That is almost like 16 times the ability of processing that the human brain has. So I think that is the key thing that underwrites and underpins all these things that you're talking about. Once you have that level of processing, it's then up to the human mind to say, how can I use this and what can I do with it? And I think I've also read stories of how people have programmed in the typical processes doctors use to diagnose a for illness, and then on a scientific test, the computer has been more accurate more consistently than the top panels of professionals. So I think the scary thing is, you know, as these processing facilities become better and better, it will obviously first start with the mundane jobs, but it could start replacing doctors, lawyers, accountants, and stuff like that, that up till now was almost like sacred professions. And I think you have said it, but the interesting is then what can we skill ourselves up on? And I think you've mentioned it, like your social skills and your decision-making skills and leadership skills. Would you like to maybe elaborate a bit more on these things are coming? So how do we prepare ourselves?
Yeah, so certainly the social skills, which is not well, I suppose not where I go, because I can do the analytical side, but yeah, the human interaction things that are not going to go away. And a lot of things, we're going to get more and more used to telephone calls coming through from computers. And at some point, if you had to do what we're doing now, 10 years ago, people would have been resistant to it. People are becoming more accepting of things. So I think even those things in the social side are going to struggle over time. But okay, so social EQ jobs and social jobs are probably important ones, but analytical skills is it's almost a choice. If I, and I'm not a psychologist, but I look at people and I'm not an analytical person. Well, you've just chosen not to be. You can choose to be. You might not enjoy it, but you can choose to be an analytical person. And as I said, so I don't think there's classes you can go to that will teach you this. I think it's a frame of mind change, where you need to first believe that you can. My thing, and the guys always laugh at me, I say, go learn Excel. If you just want a little bit of logic, and I like Excel because everybody's got Excel. Everybody knows how to read Excel, but not everybody knows how to use it. And it's phenomenally useful tool. It can do so much. And once you're in Excel right to the 100%, you can then get Excel to talk to other things, and then you can get some more percents. So my feeling is just for basic skills is I write a lot of my automation straight in Excel because companies already own it. They know how to use it, and I can talk to probably every single package that they've got. So I don't need to bring another package in. I just teach Excel. And you can learn that online. But the thing is that I think there's a lot of people that don't enjoy it. It's just not my thing. Well, then if analytics is not your thing, then you're going to be bypassed by the analytic people on the analytic field. So you're going to be forced down the social, the human interaction, those sorts of jobs. I don't know how else you get it at the end of the day.
I think my other friend is smiling there at the background because he probably concurred with everything you say. So Gavin, you want to have a comment on that?
I've been training Excel for 28 years and have had many corporates go through the door. And I think the most common comment I've had about it is, no, you're not on Excel anymore, because you can do so much with it. And, you know, I concur completely with you. It's one of the most flexible tools, but it's also therefore one of the most dangerous, because what you've got is the ability for people to fiddle when they don't understand the mathematics that's going on in each cell. And that can cause all sorts of interesting problems.
Yeah, I know for sure. Yeah.
Right. There's a question.
I see that question, yeah. Jobs like managers analytics, which will still be required, but what about the lower unskilled workforce? And that's a tricky one. So obviously the kind of jobs, the more trade kind of jobs are difficult, but although I said builders are actually now replaceable, I think it'll take a while to see it here, but it doesn't take that long. Plumbers, electricians are going to be people that are difficult to replace. But if there are workers that do, and this is the problem that we've got right now. So just think about this for a second. When COVID happened, a lot of things fell over because humans were taken out of the process. And so a lot of companies around the world are looking at how my supply chain just dried up, or my production line just dried up because everyone's sitting at home. So the first thought that business will do as capitalists is think, well, how do we then automate that? And we've got two things happening at the same time now. People are not working and they've got no money because they're not working. And at the same time, we're going to try and automate. So that's just going to compound that same issue right now. So this is probably going to happen. So if there are jobs that are very low level, which are repetitive, extremely repetitive, and I'm just off the top of my head, just thinking something like mining, I mean, making holes and going through a wall is probably a machine can do that. I haven't seen one, but I'm assuming they can. So there is a risk. And if government doesn't, I'm talking about not just ours, but governments around the world don't step in and say, how do we make sure that we can create employment while being competitive in the market? Because if we just hire people because we want to create jobs, we will put ourselves out of the market competitively. We just will, because China's not going to do the same. They're going to come in and they're going to automate, and they're going to come in at a cheap price. So that's a difficult thing. And I see that Branson and Mr. Facebook and Zuckerberg and a couple of other people, Microsoft, are talking about a global minimum wage, which is a thought they're trying to get in here, because they do realize that at some point we're going to start putting enough people out of work. Just remember also at the same time that as we automate things, things become cheaper. Over time, things actually become cheaper. So just because you're not working or getting less money doesn't mean that you're going to die because you can't afford. I mean, think about it. If everything's run by computers, then and nobody's getting an income, well, computers don't need things. You can't sell things to computers. You got to sell things to people at the end of the day. So you're still going to have a market. But yeah, it's scary. And I think
just to put a positive spin on that, we've had several of these discussions in the past. And if you go through the history, obviously things are now just accelerating faster and faster. But if you go through history, you know, from the when everybody was on ox wagons and horses, and people were predicting that London will be under 6 meters of manure in another 10 years at the rate that manure is piling up in the streets. And at that stage, nobody knew that just a couple of kilometers down the road, there was old Henry Ford in his backyard building an engine that revolutionized the way we use transport. And in a similar way, the whole internet thing. So I think whenever there's a big, call it disruption in the economy, the history has shown that, yes, let's say, call it a third of the jobs are wiped out, or 2/3 of the jobs are wiped out as a result of that old industry. But then within a couple of years later, you then look back, the new industry has enabled 3 times more jobs than was available with the old industry, but only for people who made the change. And I think that I'm positive about that the kind of change we're looking for here is not necessarily people who will now go back to university and become lawyers and mathematicians and stuff like that. I think the interaction with technology is now so great. If you can just apply your mind and start looking at social needs, because social needs won't go away, but find more cleverer way of meeting those social needs, then the technology will become a huge enabler, because like Peter and Diamandis also say, there's never been a better time in history to be in business than right now, with so many of the resources that can multiply your effort and bring you and make you visible in a very short space of time. So I think it's not just despair, but it's also a wake-up call to say, listen, if you sit and wait until it happens, it's too late. You will have to go through a traumatic experience. Why don't you, while you still have your job or you still have your other thing, start retraining yourself and repositioning yourself. And if you don't know what to do it connect yourself with groups like the Chamber of Commerce.
Yes,
and
I agree with that.
a platform, and start seeing what's already happening, so that at the right time, you find your new niche.
No, I'm with you. I was going to say the same thing. So sometimes I just listen to your talks, your chamber talks, just to hear what other people are doing, because I think the only thing that I would add there is almost a forced group think about something, and that everybody's involved, and you need to get involved and be vocal and actually apply yourself. I think you learn a hell of a lot. I think the people that are worried and then do nothing about it is the problem. You don't want to be that. Yeah, no, I agree with you on that one. Any other questions?
That was your question that we then took over as a discussion topic. You want to just comment whether your question has been answered?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Jasper and Grant. I can concur with what you're saying, Jasper, that hopefully there will be more opportunities created for, because I'm just thinking specifically in South Africa, where we've got a lot of unskilled workers, and one needs to think ahead how you're going to accommodate those people still earning an income. But thanks for the answer.
Yeah.
I was just reminded of a comment Lee Harrison made this morning at our Wisdoms group about how people are finding ways to earn money. And apparently this one lady has got, I don't know how many, 15 million followers, and all she does is she finds different ways to put her head into bread or something like that. So I think we live in a crazy world. So it's almost like as much as you can think and be imaginative, as long as you can entertain people, there will always be ways to make money. All right. Any other question?
Yeah, I'd like to just make a comment. I think one of the keys that we're talking about here is actually fundamentally reworking the education system, because that's the only way you're going to actually bring people into the new economy, is actually by changing the way we're teaching people from the time they enter school, and changing those mechanisms and improving them dramatically, because it's one of our single biggest problems worldwide at the moment is the levels of appropriate, if I can
skills.
use that word, appropriate input, and skills that are being applied right from the very, very early stages, early intervention, developing skills. One of our earlier speakers, spoke about, how these youngsters at 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, they're whizzes on the technology. They just take to it naturally, but you've got to be able to provide that across the board. You can't limit it to certain sectors of the population. It's got to be spread far and wide. I mean, I saw an article about folks who took iPads out into one of the rural areas here, to a community that had no electricity, had no technology. And within 15 minutes, some of the 5, 6-year-olds in that community were operating those iPads. And that's the kind of opportunity you've got to start to create, I believe. That's the only way you're going to solve this fear problem of people losing jobs and not being able to actually find something new to do, is that you've got to start at that level. And I mean, jobs are not going to disappear in the next 10, 20 years. Jobs are going to still be there, but you're going to start repurposing, and you've got to bring the next generation into the right frame. Yeah,
but I mean, the next generation is brought into that world automatically.
Well, up to a point, it depends. Yeah. It depends where they are.
No, for sure. But I think the other half of that is also that education is changing in that kids go home, and I think a hell of a lot of what you learn is actually from your parents, and the rest is not everything can be taught at school, and that's a problem, because the legacy of education in this country has not allowed everybody in this country to have that at home. Sean comes home, my son, and he asks me about programming or maths. I can help him, but not every parent in this country can do that, and that's a couple of generations to fix that as well.
Grant, have you ever heard of the Hole in the Wall project they had in, I think it was Delhi in India? A businessman put touchscreen computers into the walls on the pavement in a very poor area. And what happened was and he built it at kid height. And most of the internet's English, and these kids, most of them couldn't speak English. But apparently the upshoot of that was within a year, the average marks at school had gone up by over 30%. And it was a very poor area. And if you want to look it up, I can't remember exactly the name of the guy, but it's called the Hole in the Wall project, which was done in India. And the effect of that was absolutely phenomenal. And which goes to the point that you and Ivan were talking about. You know, if you haven't got it at home, how about something like that as a project here in South Africa?
Yeah, I'll go have a look at that. The one thing I've also learned, I do a bit of work down in Khayelitsha, some pro bono stuff and then some stuff for the varsity. And sometimes we, oh, you're putting the, okay, cool. Thanks, Ivan. I'll have a look at that a little later. But sometimes what we think is needed is not what's needed. So we go in there with the wrong, so I help entrepreneurs basically. And you go in there wanting to teach them finance and stuff like that, and you end up teaching maths, basic maths. So there's sometimes our perception of what's needed is not necessarily right. But I like that, the Hole in the Wall. I'll definitely have a look at that. Got a question again from Kapuli, is that right? Amazing when we are not operating from fear, plenty of opportunities. My granddaughter 5 records recipes on her phone. Yeah, 5. Bloody hell. Okay. No, I actually was at one stage wondering how they are going to try and get all that information into the kids by matric. The amount that the kids know by the time we get to matric is so probably my 3rd year university by the time they get to matric now. It's ridiculous. Stella says people are really getting very creative. New concept of a drive-through weddings. My word, drive-through weddings. That's interesting, especially the first dance is going to be tricky. But yeah, and I don't know if I must put this out there, but there's a drive-through strip club in PE. My sister-in-law said it's around the corner from them. I cannot believe that what people are coming up with. But anyway, drive-through weddings. Anyway, yeah. So that's we've got a hell of a. We do need to get education sorted, and the problem is I don't know that many people know how, and I don't know that it's the government's job entirely. We've got to get involved. They've certainly got the money. They've probably got the resources, but I don't know that they necessarily know how to.
I would agree with that, Grant. I think one of the speakers on one of the other days said, you know, government is an enabler. It shouldn't be an operator. And I think the problem is education is currently primarily and government operated exercise. You know, there are obviously private schools and specialist schools and those sorts of things. But again, those tend to be out of reach for the average, you know, the average rural individual and even many of the people in the cities. And that's, again, not just a problem here locally. I think it's a global problem. But it's when you've got, you know, people who are going out there with quality education systems, but they only able to target small people because they're not being enabled on the scale that a government can enable. The trouble is when governments try to enable and control and manage and operate, I think is when things just lag and get behind. And that's the real challenge. I think that's one of the real challenges. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, I don't know if there's any other questions.
Okay, Grant, thank you. I think we're getting close to getting ready for the next speaker. But again, a very informative session there. And so applause for you there. You see it there.